You're listening to the Grind Line Podcast.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grind Line Podcast. You're listening to episode 298. I am your host, Greg. I'm here tonight with Tyler, but also with Daniella Bruce. And Daniella, every time we talk to you, it seems like you have like a different title or you're doing a different thing. So now I'm going to say Daniella Bruce of the brand new The Conversation Line podcast with Ken Daniels.
You know, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I keep getting new things to do and my title keeps changing just a little bit every time I talk to you guys. We're going to go with it's a good thing. But yes, The Conversation Line and a great new podcast with Ken Daniels and Ken Cal that is going to be a lot of fun all season long. So I appreciate the plug so early in the show.
Yeah.
That's all.
We're the lines, the grind line, the conversation lines.
Yeah,
We just need
exactly.
another line in there, 2 more lines.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
But it's been really good. It's a really, really engaging podcast. It's cool to see the players on it and to be able to hear just Ken Daniels is such a great speaker. Like just to hear him talk, like he's like go to sleep ASMR type talking, which is awesome.
And you know, one of the things about hosting with him and Ken Cal is that every time I do a podcast with them, and obviously we will have a guest with us, but I learn something from them too. Every single time. Our next episode is actually with our equipment managers, our assistant equipment managers. And it's so interesting. And Ken has been around them for so long that they start talking about some really funny stories and things from the past and older players and what they all used to do. And I'm like, this it's so fun. It's just very cool to listen to people that have been around the game for so long, around the team for so long, and know that you're going to learn something every single time you sit down with them.
Yeah, it's really good. And they're on all platforms too. So if you can check them out on YouTube, you can check them out on all the major podcast platforms too.
Yes, yes.
I'm not going to lie, by the time Friday comes around, I need other podcasts to listen to. So that will be one on my radar for probably Thursday, Friday, somewhere around
It's
there.
really good. I'm telling you, they're an entertaining bunch. They're great people as it is. They're funny to listen to. And the stories they have are things that like no one else has stories like this. Nobody else with any other job.
Ken Cal was one of like my first follows on Twitter. And then when I finally came to Detroit as an adult to watch a game, he actually like took the time to like meet me and like take some pictures and talk to my dad and stuff like that. So that meant a lot. So definitely we'll have to listen to that.
So we have Daniella on to talk tonight a little bit about how the season has gone so far. So the Red Wings are 14 games in. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what we've liked so far, like what we've seen that what we've liked. What is, I don't want to say concerning, but what has not gone maybe the way they hoped it was going to go. And then at the last part of the show, going to do a little bit about what we would like to see going forward. And I think we should start on a positive note. So right now, the Detroit Red Wings, after 14 games played, are 6-7-1 with 13 points. Unfortunately, they are second to last in the division, but it is not by much. So if they get 3 points, they're up in third ahead of the Bruins. So it's been a really tight race. A lot of teams have not had maybe the season they hoped they were going to have so far in our division, which is good for us because we're right there in the thick of it, and not so good for all of them. So I want to start with the good though. And I kind of think I want to start with goaltending. So if you had seen Dave Pagnotta's tweet, top 10 save percentage leaders among NHL goalies to date, we have Cam Talbot as the third best goalie by save percentage in the league with a 926, and Alex Lyon at number 7, tied with Ilya Sorokin at a 916. Goaltending was something that we talked about coming in, that it's a place you tried to like buff up with Husso being hurt so many times last season, Husso coming in again this season, getting hurt again, going to Grand Rapids, then coming back. It's kind of a roller coaster there, and you were hoping that after not re-signing Reimer, that you'd make a big move. I thought Talbot was a pretty big move, and he's come in and shown that maybe it's not just the Kings defense in front of him that made him good, that he's actually a solid goaltender like we had been saying from the beginning. So what's been your thoughts on kind of the goaltending situation and kind of how it has evolved since last season?
Well, I think starting there with what we saw last season, especially at the end of the year with Alex Lyon, was the reality of the situation was he has never played that volume of games. He has never had to deal with that physically and mentally and what the toll that takes on a goaltender. So he definitely felt the effects of that at the end of the year. Coaching felt the effects of that, and they didn't want him to have to take that big of a load, that much pressure this season. So bringing in Cam Talbot really gives you an even split. And we've seen them working the goaltending situation that way. Like, I think it's been 2 or 3 times this year. One of them's coming off a shutout, and we still see the other one in net the next game. And that's not to be insulting to the guy that just posted a shutout. That's because they really want to keep both of them going, because that's a key to this team's success in the long run. At the end of the season, you're going to need both of them going and both of them being able to come in and win you games. And I think we've seen that so far. Bummer that Alex Lyon had to miss a couple being hurt, but Billy Husso, being in that New York game, which was one of the weirdest games at Little Caesars Arena a couple nights ago, that Saturday night game where the Red Wings offense was actually rolling, creating so many scoring chances. Felt like they were in that game. You can't really put that one on Billy Husso, the loss, but I think he's going to be able to serve as that third goaltender, and I think that's going to be great to have too. But the way that I see this working out is that they are going to ride Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon as a 1-2 punch, unless there's something else that happens with injury, which we hope that doesn't happen, because we really like to see the two of them both operating at a high level, both performing at a high level. And it seems like right now that's really got them in a rhythm, both of them.
Tyler, how do you feel about the goaltending situation so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what you hoped it would be. I mean, they're not losing games because of goaltending. Let's be honest here. They're losing games because of D-zone coverage, lack of breakout, a lot of different reasons. So the goaltending situation is pretty ideal. Obviously, especially with Husso coming back, you have pretty much 3 guys at this point. And, Talbot's taking the reins at this point, but like Daniela said, you kind of got to do the 1-2 punch nowadays. It's not like I heard Roberto Luongo talking on another podcast today how he played 75 games in a season. I think it was like 08, 09 or something. Those days are long gone, unfortunately. So this is what we got, and honestly, I'm pretty happy about it. I think there's other issues with the team that are way bigger than the goaltending.
As you said about Alex Lyon, the season before he came to Detroit, when he played with the Florida Panthers, the most games he had played in a single season was 15. He came to Detroit last season and played 44 and still kept a .904 save percentage. Cam Talbot, we said if you could bring in a guy that could take 30 games off of Alex Lyon and just kind of spread it out a little bit more, so that, and you're right, he hit a wall at one point where you're like, you can tell that this is too much. He's been overworked. Like, it's not, and he says, when it's not going to be a good night. And he had several of those nights last season simply because he was tired. And you bring in a guy who played 54 games for the LA Kings last season and posted a 913 in that stretch. If you can bring Talbot's total down to 30, and you can play Alex Lyon the rest of the games, but space him out enough, I think you've got a really good tandem there that can like have some punch. There's some punch there. They're the ones that are making timely saves. I've said that you have to have a goalie that when the defense does slip up, they can make a big save. And they've each shown at least 1 or 2 just massive saves this season. And to Billy Husso, like you said, Billy Husso was not the reason they lost that Rangers game. They had chances. They had 37 scoring chances for to 22 against at 5-on-5. They had 14 high danger chances for, the Red Wings did at 5-on-5, to the Rangers 7 high danger chances for. So they were getting chances. It's just, you get a fluky goal, you get 2 fluky goals, your stuff doesn't go in. If posts counted as goals, the Red Wings would have won by 20 that game. It was unbelievable how many posts they hit. And that's the kind of second thing that I really like that's happening this season. As much as they talk about defense, the Red Wings on most nights are getting more high danger chances than the opposing team, which means the defense is doing a good job at moving people to the perimeter. It means they're doing a good job at blocking shots. It means they are doing a good job at keeping the chances up high instead of down low in the dangerous areas. And I think that is a big testament, not to the overall defense, but to guys like Simon Edinson, who have just come out and knocked the door down completely. The kid has been an absolute stud so far this season. And what's the kind of growth that you have seen in Simon Edinson? Even though he had a really limited kind of amount of games last season, he's played since day one, and it's been really impressive.
Yeah, we were actually talking about him amongst the media, and Derek Lalone was talking about him today after practice, and just how he's seen a lot of consistency from Simon Edvinson, and that's not something you always expect from a young defenseman that's breaking into the NHL, right? He's been playing those top pairing minutes with Mo Sider, which is awesome. The two of them have been great. They're one of the best defensive pairings in the leagues if you look at some of the underlying numbers, which is great for Red Wings' future. Like, that's exactly what we wanted, right? To see the two of them kind of anchoring down the defense, but the consistency that he shows is something that's pretty spectacular, even dating back to last year's preseason, right? He comes in, he has a good preseason, plays in Grand Rapids, gets the call up, plays really well during the stretch that he was here, plays well in Grand Rapids for the playoffs, and then kind of hits the ground running this season where he has not looked out of place at all. You're going to see some mistakes. Obviously, that's what happens when you're kind of growing into the league. But the way that he's been able to take on the consistent minutes, to play the consistent level of NHL hockey that he's playing right now is something every single Red Wing fan should be really excited about. And I know there are some struggles right now, which I know we'll talk about, but that is one of the bright spots, the way that those two have been able to play together.
Yeah, no doubt. Edvinson has been everything that we wanted him to be, and probably then some. It's a good thing when you're watching a game and you realize he's not making mistakes, which means he's not standing out, but he's standing out in other ways. Being physical. I'd like to see a little bit more physicality for the size that he is, but I think that will materialize as time goes on. But like, he's not turning the puck over a whole ton, and when he does, he's able to get back into position and get back. He's way faster than I thought he was, to be honest, too. That's another thing that kind of stuck out. With the number 77 and him being a Swede, you're just going to get the comparisons to Victor Hedman. I don't there's not much you can do there. I'm not saying that that's who he is, but sometimes you like pinch yourself and you're like, is that Hedman out there? Because he does have something about him that sticks out to somebody like he would be a Victor Hedman kind of player. And so that's where the comparisons come from. And fair or unfair, they're going to be there for a long period of time. So
You know what? His mentality is most professional athletes have the mentality of always wanting to do better, even when they had the best game that they could possibly have. They're still going to want more from themselves. But I talked to him after. I don't remember specifically what game it was, but it was one of the first 5 games of the season. He played over 24 minutes. It was by far the most minutes he had played in an NHL game. And I asked him about it, just how he felt out there. You're in every situation. You're out there in big 6-on-5 situations with Marco Casper. It might have been that Islanders game actually, where they ended up winning in New York. And he's like, yeah, it felt really good. I'm glad the coaches trust me, but I could have done this better. I could have done this better, and I could have been better in this spot. And I want to do this better next time. And every time I talk to the coaches, I don't really want them to praise me. I want them to tell me what things I could have done better in that game. I'm like, man, you just played one of the best games in your early NHL career, and that's the way he thinks about it. So I think that's a great sign of what he wants to do and how he wants to grow and how he will grow. Like you said, you don't want to call him Victor Hedman at this point, but the comparison can be there. And I guess, we'll probably put that on him for his whole career.
the other thing that kind of sticks out too is I remember when he got drafted, watching a lot of like the draft comparisons and all that stuff. One thing that they said in the specific video that I watched was he was a very high ceiling, very, very high risk, high reward kind of player because he was very inconsistent early in his career, over in Sweden, where he would be really good for 5 or 6 games and then it would kind of slow down for 4 or 5 games. It seems like he's starting to get that consistency. Do you see that as well?
Definitely. I think that's the number one thing about his game that's standing out right now is that on a consistent basis, he may not be making a spectacular player doing anything that, knocking your socks off every night, but he's doing his job every single night and he's not doing anything real like glaringly bad. He'll make a mistake here and there, but it's nothing that he can't recover from or hasn't recovered from at this point, which is a really good sign.
And I mean, the underlying stats kind of back that up. So if you look at the JFresh cards, and these are the new ones, so these are the ones that just came out that count this season. He's at a 91 projected WAR with an 83 EV offense and a 91 EV defense. But it's the competition score that is the thing that we like to look at a lot. which is at a 96%, which if he had started the season with Cider would probably be at a 99. We know that whoever plays with Cider, they get literally the hardest minutes in the entire league. They're put up consistently against the best competition. And to be a 21-year-old and to perform the way he has performed is just, I mean, it's a huge step in the right direction. And to his credit, like you said, if he sounds like what Yzerman would call a student of the game. The players that he likes to go out and get are the guys that constantly want to know what they can do to improve. I feel like Marco Kasper is like that. Marco Kasper is a guy that consistently, like, yeah, sure, I had a good game, but let me look at tape and figure out what I could have done here, or what I could have done there in order to take it to that next level. And it seems like those are the kind of guys that Yzerman really goes after, are the guys that are never satisfied with where their game is currently at, because they know there's a next level they can get to, which is, it's huge. It's a huge character thing.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the, when you talk about Red Wings DNA, right? That phrase comes up a lot when the draft rolls around, and that's the type of player they're looking for, that wants to learn how to be better, that wants to commit defensively to the game, that wants to do the fundamental things correctly, and understands that trusting that process will get them the offensive part of their game that they want, or whatever other part of their game. Like with Simon, you say physicality. Maybe he's got to focus a little bit on the fundamentals right now, and that physical game of his is what's going to sprout next. So I think that that's the type of player they want. That's the type of the buy-in they want from not only the young guys, really older players too, anybody that's on their team.
Yeah, for sure. But I think those are kind of like my standout, like, things that I have noticed that have gone like really, really well this season. Tyler, did you have anything you wanted to add with what you've liked so far on the season?
I was just gonna add to the whole Red Wing standard kind of thing. It's kind of crazy how the standard has gone from, the Yzermans and the Lidstroms and the Zetterbergs and the Datsuks, and now Larkin is like kind of taking those reins and now like kind of pushing them onto the Raymonds and the Ciders, and even more so the Edvinsons and like those guys. Like, you don't ever really see a Red Wing player speak out and say something that you're like, I don't know if he should have said that. Like, you really don't see that. It's kind of crazy. Coming from a city that I live in here in Boston, if you say one little wrong thing, it's going all over sports radio. It's going all over Twitter nowadays. And the Wings just are really good at not saying anything, like even at the management level too. Steve Yzerman's very tight-lipped too. It's just kind of crazy how it's like, it's trickled down even after all these years.
Sometimes I wish they'd say just a little bit more, but
A
that's
little more.
Yeah.
Like, come on, the content, guys. We have stuff to record. Give us a little bit
We
more.
got to do a podcast here.
Before we go to our first break, I want to give an honorable mention to Andrew Kopp, who I think has had a great season so far this season. He has been putting up points so far. Andrew Kopp has 7 points in 14 games. He is 1 point below Patrick Kane currently, and 2 points above Simon Edvinson in the standings. So I think that's something we're going to talk about on the other side of the commercial, is a little bit about kind of point production, a little bit about special teams. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. From the chill of the arena to skates on ice and people hitting the boards, an NHL game is a sports experience like none other. And when you are looking for tickets, your pick should be Game Time. Game Time is the only app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. And see the great seats with Game Time picks, and see the view from your seat on your phone before you buy your tickets. All-in pricing shows you your total cost up front, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just a couple taps. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% off the difference. With event cancellation policies that automatically refund your tickets and 24-hour returns guaranteed, you are protected with the Game Time app. And starting now until December 2nd, Game Time is giving us an exclusive deal on Winter Classic tickets. You can get 10% on bleacher seats and 20 to 25% on home plate area tickets. So don't miss out on one of the biggest sporting events this year at Wrigley Field. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 2024-25 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. Right now, the Red Wings are a long shot to make the Stanley Cup, but you can put a bet in anyways, and if they turn things around, you might make a bit of cash. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
And we're back, and we started happy, so now we're going to get a little sad. Not so much sad, but slightly disappointing. So I think I want to start with, let's start with special teams. And I mean, the power play has come up a little bit, but we see a consistent theme that I think is, to me, a little bit troubling. So, and me and Tyler have talked about it. You see, even on the power play, a rush down the ice, a dump in, a non-retrieval, and a go the other way. Or you see a cycle, and nothing. A poke out of the zone. And like I said, it's gotten a little better. We've pulled the power play up a little bit. But I feel like with the offensive threats that you have with the Vladimir Tarasenko's, with the Patrick Kanes, with the Alex DeBrincats, and granted, Alex DeBrincat is having what I would consider a bounce back season right now. After kind of ending on a softer note last season, he's got 12 points in 14 games. Lucas Raymond has 1 goal in 14 games. He has 13 points, which is great. I'll take the assists all day, but he has 1 goal. And I think on special teams, this is where it's kind of really glaring, because you've got these high offensive threats and nothing is going in. And then you go on the PK and immediately the other team scores. So I think special teams is an area that's slightly concerning to me.
Yeah, some of it feels like, especially when you mention the power play and the chances and pucks just not going in, they have to go in at some point, because there have been chances. There are grade A scoring chances that are created on the power play. And as tough it might be for us to watch it happen, as tough as it might be for them to play in it right now, it feels like they do have a good process, a good system in place that in theory should be working. And if they stick with that and play the way, if they can play the way we saw on Saturday against New York, or even in the Toronto game, for the most part of it, they played pretty well defensively in that game, just didn't bury their opportunities, then I think we'll start to see these pucks go in. And I know that might just be the cliche, sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't, but there is no way that it can be this unlucky for that long. Like, these pucks have to go in the net at some point, and they're creating the opportunities and sticking to it. And I think, we might just have to ride this out, make sure that they stick to it. We ride it with them, and hopefully they start putting them in the back of the net sooner rather than later.
It's not like it's just a Red Wings problem either. I'll preface it by saying it's a league-wide problem. Right now, the Red Wings are in 8th for the power play right now. They have a 24.4% power play percentage. Winnipeg Jets have an absolutely insane 41.9%, which is not sustainable at all. And if you sort by penalty kill, right now the Red Wings are second to last in the league in PK, though, at 65%. You're right, though. Power play, you get the chances eventually, they will go in. That's when we'll go back to like PDO. And I know people don't like PDO because it's a luck score. But I would say, especially in that Rangers game, that's a big luck thing. You're hitting posts. That's what you're doing. You're whiffing wide open nets. Like Alex DeBrincat has a wide open net, and it's not his fault that the puck rolled on him or that it bobbled when it was passed. And it's just, eventually, you're right. Eventually, the law of averages, things will correct themselves. But right now, it's not really fun to watch.
No, and I mean, the bigger concern, if you want to place a concern on something, would be the penalty kill right now, right? And they are getting some tough breaks too, which it feels like when it rains, it pours in that situation. But they started off pretty slow, seemed like it might have found its groove a little bit, and then kind of back to not looking as sharp as it was. And if you talk to the guys that are on the penalty hill, we talked to Ben Sherratt this week, and We have to be aggressive. Like, our penalty kill is good when we're aggressive, and they find themselves sitting back a little bit. He mentioned losing your confidence a little when, one or two do go in, and then you're playing a little with a little hesitation. You're losing your confidence a little bit, but they have to stay aggressive on the penalty kill, and they have faith that that also is going to even out too. Their penalty kill won't look the way it looks right now, the entire season. But that's where the bigger part of concern would be for me, because the power play, it builds some momentum even when you don't score. You've got the chances. But as you said, lately it feels like as soon as they take a penalty, you're like, oh no, this is going to be a goal. Like their penalty kill just doesn't have that groove right now. So that would be if there's a concern in special teams, it would be there. But I think they have all the capabilities to fix that problem, and that they will.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the power play is less of a concern than the penalty kill, obviously. What's their power play? 24%. I mean, that's pretty decent. Winnipeg's going to come back to earth. Colorado's probably going to come down back to earth. I believe 25% is like really good in the NHL. So, 24.4% is not bad right now. You're behind teams like the Rangers and the Panthers and stuff like that. So, I wouldn't worry too much about that other than the zone entry, because it feels like if they can't enter the zone, they can't do anything, right? Like, a lot of the times the first power play unit will go out there, they'll try to enter the zone, they can't do it. And then finally the second unit comes in and they finally get set up and there's 10 seconds left on the power play. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But it kind of comes down to their entry, and I feel like they don't rely on Dylan Larkin enough when it comes to entry. I feel like they try with Patrick Kane and try with Lucas Raymond. I feel like Larkin, a lot of the times watching games, when he's streaking through the neutral zone and even through the offensive zone, he's getting in on the power play and they get set up. So I feel like they could use that a little bit more often. And then in terms of the penalty kill, it's funny you say that Ben Sherratt said that they're not aggressive enough. They're very passive. I feel like they just try to block shots instead of like clamping down and like making plays in the corners or in front of the net. Like they don't do enough of that. I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if what that is specifically, but penalty killers have to be your hardest workers. So, playing hockey, it's one of those things. It's like your penalty killers are your most aggressive people. And, you think of like guys like Chris Draper and Darren Helm and guys of the past that are very good on the penalty kill. Those guys never stop. Their motor never stops. So they need to find a way to either be passive and really want to sit back and block shots, or be really aggressive and clamp down. And I feel like they're kind of stuck in between.
Yeah, I know when me and Ryan a while back went to a analytics conference in Columbus, the Columbus Blue Jackets held an analytics conference, which I wish more teams would do. Just like invite media and invite people to come in and just learn more about data analytics and hockey and how that kind of affects the game itself. They talked about something called the power kill, where you are just continuously like overrunning the opposing power play and being so aggressive that it's overwhelming for them, and it gets more pucks out, and it gets more shorthanded chances. And I feel like they're doing the exact opposite of that. They're playing man. They're just trying to get in the lanes, and a lot of times it's not working because they're blocking off their own goalie's line of sight, or someone's finding a backdoor pass really easily, and it's just going in. So I think that maybe they could be a bit more aggressive there, but I think you're right. I think that is the more concerning thing. Is the penalty kill versus the power play. But what's been a little more concerning to me is that you've got 3 guys with 10 points, and your fourth guy that's right behind at 8 points, Patrick Kane, but also Moritz Seider. So Mo is doing what Mo should be doing. Mo is getting points, and we knew that he can do it, and he's doing it. But what's a little bit worrying to me is you bring in a guy full time, and you're putting in a guy like Jonathan Berggren. And it's not to say that he's not getting his chances, because we talked about this, I think, last week, Tyler, is that he's creating probably the most offense out of any player on the team. It's not going in. So high offensive, technically, production without the points being there, but a low luck score. But you look at guys like Joe Veleno with 2 points. Christian Fischer has 2 points. Vladimir Tarasenko has 3 points in 13 games. And I don't want to make excuses, and I'm not in the room, but I know that the flu and sickness has been going through the room at the beginning of this season, and you're a little close. You're not in the room either, Daniella, but you're a little closer. I just wonder how much we're not hearing about how sick guys are, how under the weather guys are, that could be leading to something like this.
I think they're pretty much through it, which is a good sign, but it was hitting guys pretty hard. Like, there was a couple of weeks span where the lucky thing was it wasn't everybody at once, because that can really hurt you at that if it happens to multiple guys at one time, but it seemed to get one player and then it would get another, and it was pretty bad for a while, just having a tough time. We think about when you have the flu and you had to play a hockey game, that's not not great, and it seemed to be a pretty gruesome flu that went through the team, and I think they're on the back end of that now, but to your point, it could just be something that slowed down the start for some of these guys, like a Vladimir Tarasenko, who was hit pretty hard with it. It Maybe he just needs a few more games to get that going, but I'm sure looking at the 3 points in 13 games, you want him to score a little bit more than that. You hope he can produce a little bit more than that.
The flu excuse is not one that I take kindly to, because just look at 2021 Ohio State. That's just for Ryan. So just be aware of that.
I
But
thought you were gonna
no,
give us like a Jordan flu game or something.
no, but yeah, they need to produce more. They know
Yeah.
that. I wonder if a lot of the luck stuff will kind of play itself out. Because when it comes down to just kind of bearing down and being able to bury the opportunities that you have, and if it's that, then obviously they need to work on that. But if it's luck, that'll sort itself out, I think. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this team. It's just a matter of time before they start scoring and putting the puck in the back of the net.
I don't like walking from my bedroom to the bathroom when I have the flu, so I'm not going to be strapping on skates and getting on the ice and trying to play a really physical game. But I think that last season we pointed to one of the strengths of the Red Wings was depth scoring. It was guys that could go in and just put the puck in the net when you need them to, especially from the bottom six. And like you said, it's really early. It's a very small sample size. There is, like I said, again, law of averages. It should improve. You should go forward, and those guys that should score will score. But as it stands right now, when you're trying to be in a playoff position by American Thanksgiving, or at least by Christmas, that it's not looking great. But I have hope that it will turn around and get a lot better, especially for guys like Berggren, that he's doing so much out there and he looks improved from last season, which is what you were hoping, that you'd see a little bit more defensive effort out of him, but you'd hope that he could be this really consistent guy. And he's getting the consistent chances, and it's not going in for him. And we know how much that sucks, because that happened to Alex DeBrincat last season, where it was shot after shot after shot and just nothing went in. It was constant posts. It was not being able to finish. And it seems like he's figured it out. So maybe we need to lock both of them in a room and have them sit down and discuss it for a while. But what have you seen in Berggren so far?
First of all, I'm convinced Alex DeBrincat is still putting up points. I'm convinced he could have 10 more if he didn't.
Oh, absolutely.
He didn't have some dumb luck. So I say this all the time, but I need to start tracking how many posts we hit, because I swear it's got to be the most in the league. I can't believe that another team hits more posts than we do. I'm gonna have to. Do you know how to find that? Do you have a way to find that?
I'm like, do I have somewhere I can go look at that really quick? And I don't think I do. I'm not sure anyone tracks.
I'm going to. I start now. Okay, we're gonna start tracking.
There's only 14 games. We can go back to the beginning. We can rewatch them and see how many posts are hit.
But as soon as I start tracking it, we'll stop hitting them. Maybe that's what the key here. They'll start hitting if I start tracking. Okay, yeah, we're on to something here. But I think
break the curse
with Berggren, going back to him, he's seeing some of that same dumb luck right now. Chances are there. He's just not finishing. There is a huge emphasis on defense on this team. We know that. Derek Lalonde has preached it. The way that they're trying to get this team to play is defensive minded first. And for very, very offensive minded players like an Alex DeBrincat, like even Patrick Kane, like Jonathan Berggren, he's the best when he's creating scoring chances, when he's got the puck on his stick. But they want him to focus on his defensive side of the game too, which we have seen the improvements from. So the trouble is making sure that players like him find the balance, right? Because he's not out there completely to be a defensive guy. You want him creating things offensively. You want him scoring goals. So I think there's still some balance that's being worked out there, and it will even out. I think that we will see that happen, and the improvements that we've seen in his game, that the coaches have seen in his game, that's kept him in the lineup consistently. are all really good things that are going to lead to the scoring. He's going to find the score sheet more than he has through this first 13 game stretch.
I agree. And if you just look at, last year, they scored a lot of goals. I think they were in the top 5 or top 10 in the NHL in goals for during the season. So they're going to find a way to find the back of the net. It's just a matter of hopefully it's not too late when they do. You know what I mean? Like, you can miss the playoffs in November. I mean, obviously you've seen situations where the St. Louis Blues are out of it at like Christmas time and they fire their coach and they end up going on a huge run. But that's I feel like that's an anomaly at this point,
That's not
So
what you want, right? That's not what you strive for. You want to be in that mix the entire way.
exactly. And they believe that, and hopefully they can figure that out. But there's too much talent on this team to not be able to at least generate some scoring opportunities, which they are. But you need to find a way to bury those because you look at the schedule, they don't score a lot, they don't score enough. And hopefully they'll be able to do that more going forward.
It's more about a rhythm thing because we've seen where you bring in guys, a bunch of new guys at once, and it takes them a while to gel and to find the right line combinations and the right chemistry to build that and to move that forward. You spoke to coaching and how they do a defensive first system, and we had talked about it a little bit. That really hurting guys like a Patrick Kane, where he's a guy that you need to get him the puck down the ice and just let him fly in and go. And when he's got to play a more defensive style, is that kind of hamstringing his offense? It really didn't last year. And if they're playing the same scheme and the same style, it shouldn't hurt him this year either. So that's the thing. If they have not really changed what they did last year, where they were at some points one of the highest scoring teams in the entire league with a decently fragile defense, but they were able to outscore their issues. If they haven't changed scheme, it should be no different. But I feel like I've noticed a lot more dump and chase. I've seen a lot more dump and change. I've seen, and we had talked about this too, Tyler, that they're so hemmed into the defensive zone for such a long period of time that they can't generate offense because they have to get the puck deep for a line change. So I don't know if that's just guys getting used to new roles, if that's guys getting used to new teammates and new deployment. But I feel like that is one thing that I have noticed that I think needs to really be looked at, is that you need to be, and maybe it goes back to being more aggressive in the defensive zone to recapture that puck and get it back out.
I think the breakout is a huge part of it. Losing a guy like Shane Gostisbehere, Olli Mata just kind of went out the door, a week ago or so. Like, they don't outlet the puck well. Obviously we got to kind of call it the way we see it. And the breakout is just not ideal. They can get better at it, of course, but I feel like it comes down to philosophy, and they're off the glass and out way too much. They're not making tape to tape passes. You watch some really good teams in the NHL and they're D to D and up to the wing and out to the center and out of the zone very quickly. And I feel like the Wings don't do that well enough. Obviously, when they have pressure, it's kind of tough to be able to alleviate it, but they have to be better at that. And I think that kind of goes back to why they're not scoring as much, why they're not generating as many scoring opportunities as they were last year. It's comes down to not being able to get out of your own zone.
Yeah, and we see flashes of it, right? And I think you're right that when they're playing well, their breakouts are clean. They're getting more zone time. They're keeping the puck in the offensive zone. And I feel like we really saw that in the New York game on Saturday. I keep referencing that game, and it was such a tough loss, such a tough game to watch. As somebody, you're broadcasting that game, you're up in the booth, and it's like, oh my gosh, it feels like we couldn't buy a goal. They did everything they possibly could to score. And I think we saw that more. I think their passes were clean. I think their breakouts were a lot better. They were sustaining zone time. And a lot of things we've been saying, they need to do this, they have to do this. They did in that game. They just didn't get the win, which is a tough pill to swallow at this point. But if they can build on the way they played then, and I really think that was a good sign for where they're at, and hopefully a building block. If you see a regression, there is a little bit more to be concerned about. But if they can keep that level of play, like we've been talking about, it's going to happen. The puck will go in, no matter how much we don't believe that right now. It will go in.
We all just need to lift them up with hope. I think that's
try to at this point, right?
Yeah, let's be overly optimistic.
Too much.
Yes. So that's would be my third point, would be even though the high danger chances are mitigated, I think the Red Wings have been outshot in almost every game this season. So they're allowing a lot of shots. And I think, again, that goes back to aggressiveness, right? That goes back to, instead of taking on the man, it's sitting back and hoping you can block that shot. And they're, to their credit, they've been really good at blocking shots. That's, I mean, one thing that Mo Seider does, and he's lauded for it across the league, is hitting people, blocking shots, and getting assists. That's what Mo Seider's been doing. And I think it goes back to aggression, to where you are allowing those shots and hoping someone blocks them instead of trying to take the shot away. So yeah, that's another thing I'd like to see them rein in, is the amount of shots they actually allow the other team to take.
Yeah, that's always a tough one for me to gauge, just because it is like in the Blackhawks game when they won, they got outshot in that game 29-25. And then even in the Toronto game where it felt like it was pretty even, they were outshot by 2. The games where they're getting doubled, like where their shot total is doubled by their opponent, I think that's where you have a lot of room for concern in that aspect, because it's just volume. And you see, I think it was 3 games straight where a puck bounced off a Red Wings defenseman and went into their own net. And that happens because of volume, right? That happens because the other team's putting pucks on net and towards the net, and they're sustaining zone time and all of that. But when you look at some of their more recent games where, yes, the numbers say they were getting outshot, it didn't feel that way. If that makes sense. I don't know exactly how else to describe it, but like the Chicago game didn't feel like they got outshot. Did they give up their fair chances? Yeah, of course. But same with the Toronto game. That was a special teams battle. That was a game where the special teams won it for them. Toronto goes 2 for 2 on the power play and wins it there. So I think it's a weird stat for me, because when I read it, I'm not overly concerned when they're outshot by a few. But at the beginning of the season, when we were seeing their totals doubled, I think that was cause for concern. But that feels like it's evening out to me, and not as big of a concern as we're moving forward.
Through 14 games played, the Red Wings have hit the post 18 times. Through 14 games played.
Do you know like where that stands? Can we find how that stands in the league?
So a huge shout out to Dauber's Frozen Tools. I've been able to find it by skater, but not by team. And they even have like a cold and hot meter, like Dylan Larkin's rated as hot, Alex DeBrincat's rated as hot. But like Dylan Larkin has hit 2, and they even divide it by goal post and crossbar.
Wow.
And their hit post percentage. So right now, and we've seen it, Alex DeBrincat, 6.3% of his shots hit a post, which is, again, that's luck. That's a huge luck thing. 4.9% of Vladimir Tarasenko's hit the post. 4.4% of Edvinson's hit the post. 5.6% of Tyler Mott's chances hit the post. So eventually you think that those post hits will turn into goals, hopefully. I mean, shift your body 2 inches to the right and maybe it goes in.
Oh, I hate that stat. I'm like upset that I know it, I think.
Oh, they do everything. They do on net percentage, block percentage, missed wide, over the net over the net shots. So
don't tell me those ones. I don't want to know those.
I feel like we missed the net a lot too.
It's pretty cool.
I was just gonna say I don't want to know those.
No, you don't want the wide of net amounts of some of the players. Those are just, it's a hole you don't want to dig yourself in. We're going to take one more short break. We'll be back to round it out with kind of what we'd like to see going forward. So give us just a couple seconds. We'll be right back. This episode of the Grindline podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Is there a skill you've been meaning to learn? Something you see someone else doing, you're saying, man, I think I'd be really good at that, or that would be a ton of fun. Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back-to-school era can come at any age. Therapy has a stigma of just being for people that are experiencing trauma in their lives, but it can be for anyone and can help with things like coping skills and setting healthy boundaries to make you a better person. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. You don't like the one you're matched with? You can switch at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. We love Black Friday. It's that time of year where you get deals on things you normally would never think about getting deals on, except with Raycon. Because with Raycon, you get an amazing deal on premium audio every day of the year. But that doesn't mean they're not having any sales on Black Friday. Far from it. They're actually doubling down on amazing value by offering our viewers up to 30% off site-wide. A Black Friday deal you'll appreciate every day? Raycon's everyday earbuds, especially if you haven't checked out their latest model, which includes plenty of new features that make them even more of a must-have for any audio lover. Now featuring a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at one time. Raycon's everyday earbuds also come with active noise cancellation. It's a feature that's a must-have for us on long flights, but one that can be difficult to find at an accessible price point until now. Because that's another thing. Although Raycon's quality rivals some of the biggest names in premium audio, Raycons start at just half the price as the other guys, so they're already an incredible deal even before you factor in their Black Friday offer up to 30% off site-wide. Raycon's everyday earbuds are also available in a variety of vibrant colors, so you don't have to have just the standard issue white or black earbuds sticking out of your ears. Now's the perfect time to scoop them up if you haven't already, and don't worry, if you're not as impressed as I am, Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you can't really lose. It's time to save big for Black Friday. Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/THPN. And we're back with the final segment. And what I think I'm going to do is I think we're going to go around the room, just one thing that you would like to see the team do going forward to try and kind of, like I said, get in that playoff position by, I'm not sure if they can do it by Thanksgiving, but at least by Christmas or the first of the year. And Tyler, I want to start with you. I want to get your kind of like take on one thing you'd like to see them maybe change up a little bit.
Yeah, I think the breakout, that's huge for me, because then that makes you have a lot more opportunity in the offensive zone and in the neutral zone too. More odd man rush opportunity. Like literally only good can come from improving the breakout and less of the off the glass and out crap that we've seen over the last couple. I feel like it was better against the Rangers in Toronto. So I don't know if after that Chicago game or actually it might have been after the Winnipeg game that they've adjusted, because they played a little bit better, even though those 2 losses, like Daniella, more energy, more enthusiasm, it feels like. And they have been better at breaking out the puck. So hopefully they can continue that, because that will only help going forward.
Yeah, I would agree. There were a lot of, I felt, really high pressure situations in that game against the Rangers. And it was not for a lack of trying. It was just for a lack of things going in, because I think they really held it to them for a lot of that game. And it was just a couple bad luck shots that were able to get the Rangers ahead. But I do agree. I think that breakout is a thing we've talked about. Breakout is a thing that I think, especially those first passes from the defensive zone out, and to be able to get guys like Larkin. We've seen Larkin this season break defensemen and go in and score a goal. And I think that's more of what you need to do. Even if he doesn't score, Larkin is a guy who I think can most consistently get the puck into the opposing player's zone without that much trouble. So I would agree. I think breakout is a thing going forward that they could definitely work on. Daniella, I don't want to say one and then feel like I'm stealing yours.
It's okay. I'm a little bit repetitive with mine because we talked about it a lot. So I'm going to keep it short anyway, but it's figuring out special teams, because 5-on-5, this team has been pretty good, especially through the last 4 or 5 games. You feel confident about the way they're playing 5-on-5. They just tend to always lose that special teams battle in the power play. I'm not, we talked about not really concerned with, they're getting their chances. They're going to score goals. They are scoring goals, 8th in the league right now. I think their power play is ranked. So it's happening there. The penalty kill needs to get stronger, because penalties are going to happen. You're going to take penalties, and you've got to be able to kill off an opposing team's power play and not give them the momentum, maybe build some momentum for yourself, but it can't feel like every time you have a player in the box, it's an automatic goal for the other team. And I think that will really shift things if the Red Wings can start winning the special teams battle on a nightly basis.
Yeah, so I'm lucky I didn't go before you, because that's what mine was going to be. I'll take it a little bit deeper. I would like to see a little bit of shakeup on the PK units. I don't know, and I just went back and looked at the daily faceoff for the first PK and second PK. So right now your first PK is Andrew Kopp, Christian Fischer, Ben Sherratt, Mo Seider. Your second PK is Dylan Larkin, Michael Rasmussen, Simon Edvinson, and Jeff Petrie. why is and if we want to be more aggressive, why is Marco Kasper not on the PK? Marco Kasper can kill a penalty. I think he should get some PK time. I think if you want to be aggressive, put a guy like Tarasenko on the PK and see what he can do there, and maybe he's a big guy. He's a more aggressive guy. I think that if you can mix up your PK a little bit with your deployment, that you could really maybe make some inroads if you wanted to try to be a little bit more aggressive on the penalty kill. So I think that might be the biggest thing going forward, is if you can get the PK rolling and not expect, and I think it's like at this point, with the way it's gone so far, you can almost expect to give up 2 power play goals a game. So unless you're scoring 3, you're either going to overtime or you're losing. So I think that's the biggest one to me too, is that if you can get that going, I think you're on you're going to be on a lot better ground going forward. I asked for questions online. Someone says, why don't we just score more goals? Yeah, great. Yeah, I think that's it. I just simply score more goals.
Let me ask that question at the media availability tomorrow. So this is received online, guys. Why don't we just score?
Yeah. Hi, Daniella Bruce from the conversation line. Why don't we just score more goals? Has anyone thought about that yet? And then the other thing is, like, why is the schedule, I feel, has been terrible. Like at the beginning of the season.
Part of this is because of the 2-week Four Nations break. So everybody's schedule is a little bit more compact and travels a little bit suckier than it usually is. But yeah, there's a lot of 3 and 4s. There's a lot of, they're going from Pittsburgh to the West Coast, and there's a back-to-back Anaheim, LA. So yeah, there's a lot of weirdness in the schedule this year, but that's not just for us.
But we've had like one back-to-back, and I feel like we've had some big like gaps where we don't play for like 4 days.
Yeah, there were some. I was watching, or I was doing my Around the League segment for the radio, and I was doing a Tampa Bay game. They had a whole week in between games recently, and I was like, how is there something going on that I'm missing? Like, are they?
Is that their bye week?
That would be weird, though.
No.
I don't think they have one because of the 2-week. It's crazy. I don't know.
My friend literally told me last night when I was having dinner with him, he's like, do the Tampa Bay Lightning exist anymore? Because I feel like every time I look at my NHL app,
they've been relegated.
Yeah. And I usually, when I do that segment, I always say, the next game for each team is blah, blah. And I'm looking, I'm like, wait a second. Is this right? Tampa doesn't play for a week? Yeah. So
and for Tampa Bay, they never play again. That is, it's better for us. It takes some competition out of the division.
Actually, not a team anymore.
I'd be okay not to see the New York Rangers again. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I actually don't think we do. Maybe we have one more game against the Rangers. Like we're done with them, and that's great. Get them all out of the way early.
Yeah, so okay, wait here. I'm looking at it right now. Their last game was the 7th, and they don't play until Thursday, the 14th. Yeah, so that was they had both home games too.
That's crazy.
They're on a 3-game homestand with like a week break in there.
I think we just need to have consistent hockey back, and we'll be all set, because we're like mini withdrawals going on, like 4-day breaks without any hockey. But Daniella, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to give you a minute to shout out. We did at the beginning, but to shout out whatever you got going on, where people can find you.
Yeah, the conversation line comes out weekly every Wednesday. You can find it on Red Wings YouTube if you prefer a video element to your podcasts, or if not, you can catch it on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you listen to your podcast. So it's there again. It's me in a mix of Ken Daniels and Ken Cal. We'll kind of go back and forth between the hosts, and we always have a fun Red Wings guest on. So the latest episode will be our equipment staff, which they're a hoot. They are so fun to be around, and they have some great stories. So it'll be another entertaining one. And thank you guys for having me, as always. Always great to catch up. I feel like this one was overdue.
Yeah, and I know they would never do this. Like the official, it's hard to get teams to do anything. But if we have like one big episode with all the media creators in like one room doing like a roundtable, would be super awesome.
It would be chaotic. That's the word I would use.
It would be really cool.
You would have to literally like play the raise your hand, let me call on you, because we all know how to talk.
Buzzers like Jeopardy. Tyler?
I just subscribed to it. So
woo, thank you.
Yeah. So it will be on the laundry list of podcasts between college football and hockey that I listen to.
Love that.
There you go. And you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
You can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You follow the Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. I'd like to shout the Hockey Podcast Network and thank them for hosting us and spreading us around. Vintage Detroit, where we have an exclusive t-shirt collection. It is the only place we trust with jerseys. If you didn't watch last episode, I kind of did a little mini review of the Fanatics jersey. Fanatics sent me one. It is really cool. So it's nice, and it's comparable to the Adidas jersey. Almost the exact same thing. I did not have any wrong logo or bad stitching. So that's a +1 to Fanatics. And Vintage Detroit does have them in stock. And we will have more t-shirts going up soon. I just sent them 4 new designs. So hopefully there will be 4 new t-shirts going up there. But again, you can follow us on YouTube, all social platforms. You can sub to us, turn on the notifications. You'll get notified every time an episode goes live. And we do have a Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/the Grindline Podcast, chip us a couple bucks, helps us keep the lights on. We like to ask Patreon questions on some of our episodes too. But that is going to do it for us tonight. Again, Daniella, thank you for your time and coming on. We always love having you on. But you stay classy, Detroit.